Welcome to your deep dive. Today, we're stepping up to the plate, diving into the history of the New York Yankees. You provided us with a fascinating Wikipedia entry on the team.
It's a rich history.
Are you ready to go from casual fan to, like, a walking encyclopedia of Yankees trivia?
I think what's really fascinating here is not just the sheer number of wins and World Series titles, but really the evolution of the team over more than a century.
Yeah.
We can see how historical events, ownership changes, and even fan culture all shaped the Yankees into the iconic franchise they are today.
It says here the team didn't actually start in New York, which I was totally surprised by. It seems their journey began with a team called the Baltimore Orioles,
Oh, that's right.
which folded in 1902.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
After the Baltimore Orioles ceased operations, the franchise rights were bought and they became the basis for the New York Highlanders in 1903.
Wow.
And it really highlights how team histories are rarely straightforward and linear.
It wasn't until 1913 that they officially became the New York Yankees. Why the name change?
Well, it might be more than just distancing themselves from Baltimore.
Right.
The name Yankees could have been chosen to, better reflect a connection to New York City itself.
Sure.
It's about forging a new identity in the heart of the Big Apple.
It seems to have worked. Their win-loss record is astounding. From 1903 to 2024, it's 10,778 wins, 8,148 losses, and 88 ties. That's a .569 winning percentage.
That's right.
It's just, wow.
It's pretty incredible. And I think it really speaks to the team's dedication to excellence. And
Yeah.
as we go through their history, we'll see how that commitment to success shows up, in their management choices, player acquisitions, and even in their interactions with fans.
Now, the Wikipedia entry mentions Joe DiMaggio's legendary 56-game hitting streak in 1941, a record that many believe will never be broken. But it also mentions that this was right before World War II,
Right.
which must have had a huge impact on the team and Major League Baseball as a whole.
Absolutely, yeah. Over 90% of players, including DiMaggio himself, entered the military, putting their baseball careers on hold for the time being.
Can you imagine what it must have been like for the fans?
Yeah.
Like their national pastime was disrupted.
I know.
Their heroes are off fighting a war.
It's incredible to consider, right? Yeah. I mean, imagine just the societal impact of the war on top of that, too.
And I wonder, did that, change the game itself when these veterans returned?
Oh, for sure.
Did their wartime experiences maybe influence their playing style or team dynamics? It's just a side of baseball history that we don't often consider.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
It would be fascinating to delve into that more deeply, absolutely. And speaking of changes, 1945 marked the beginning of a new era for the Yankees,
Right.
with new owners, Del Webb, Dan Topping, and Larry McPhail.
And their arrival coincided with the Yankees securing 6 World Series championships in the 1950s.
Yeah.
Was it just luck that these new owners, they just had the Midas touch, or was it something more?
Well, I think they had, the resources and the vision to build a dynasty.
Right.
They invested in players, made savvy managerial decisions, and ultimately shaped the Yankees into the powerhouse team we know today.
And then next up we have the 1960s and 2 legendary players, Mickey Mantle and Roger Maris. This decade was filled with triumph and controversy, right?
Definitely. Yeah, Maris broke Babe Ruth's single-season home run record in 1961.
Oh.
But it came with, a lot of debate and scrutiny.
Oh, I bet. It seems like every baseball fan has an opinion on that one.
I think so.
Now, the late 1970s saw the Yankees roar back after a bit of a lull.
Mm-hmm.
They won 3 consecutive AL East titles and 2 World Series championships in 1977 and 1978.
What I find fascinating about that period is, we see this pattern throughout their history.
Okay.
Periods of incredible dominance followed by these periods of rebuilding, but they always seem to bounce back,
Yeah.
which really says a lot about their resilience as an organization.
And then, of course, we have the emergence of Derek Jeter, Mariano Rivera, and the Core Four in the 1990s and 2000s.
Oh, yeah.
Talk about a cultural phenomenon.
I mean, they were more than just great players.
Right.
They became like icons
Okay.
representing an entire generation of Yankees fans, and baseball enthusiasts.
Absolutely.
And their impact really transcended the sport itself.
They had a real aura about them.
They did.
And then in 2009, the Yankees opened the new Yankee Stadium,
Yes.
which, coincidentally or not, was the same year they won another World Series title.
Isn't that interesting?
It's pretty symbolic, don't you think?
It is.
Like they're echoing that 1923 win in the original Yankee Stadium,
Uh-huh.
reinforcing the idea that this team is built on legacy,
Right.
even as they enter a new era.
It's almost like a passing of the torch in a way,
It is.
from one generation to the
The
next.
continuity is definitely impressive. With 27 World Series wins in 41 appearances, the Yankees are undoubtedly the most successful team in MLB history.
I mean, there's no doubt about it.
That's a lot of pressure to keep winning, though, right?
I think it definitely creates a very unique culture within the organization and amongst their fan base as well.
Yeah.
But to, I think, fully understand the Yankees, we need to explore more than just their achievements on the field, right?
Right.
We have to look at the fans,
Right.
the rivalries, those legendary nicknames.
You're right. The bleacher creatures, for instance, are a force to be reckoned with. Their chants, the famous roll call during the first inning, that's a huge part of the Yankee Stadium experience.
Oh, absolutely.
Have you ever heard stories of, like, opposing players being completely rattled by the roll call?
Oh, for sure. To have thousands of fans, like, chanting your name,
Yeah.
demanding your attention, it must be incredibly intense.
And it's amazing how these traditions become part of the team's identity.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
And then there are the nicknames like the Bronx Bombers
Right.
for their powerful offense
The powerful hitters.
and the Evil Empire,
Oh, yeah.
which, love it or hate it, it reflects their dominance.
Yeah.
And sometimes maybe their controversial spending habits.
Right. Those nicknames, I think, are a great example of how the Yankees have been perceived throughout their history.
Yeah.
Both positively and negatively.
Yeah.
They inspire awe and admiration, but also envy and resentment from, opposing fans.
They definitely evoke strong emotions. And speaking of spending, the Yankees have always been willing to open their wallets
It's true.
to acquire top talent. Did you know that back in 2006, their payroll was higher than the combined payroll of 5 other teams?
That is amazing. Like, what?
It's true. It speaks to, I think, their commitment to, putting the best team on the field possible.
Wow.
And it's definitely contributed to their success, but it's also sparked debates, right? About competitive balance.
Oh, for sure.
The role of money in baseball.
And you can't talk about the Yankees without talking about their rivalry, especially with the Boston Red Sox.
I mean, it's one of the most intense and storied rivalries in all of sports history.
Absolutely. Those games were always electric.
Yeah.
Filled with dramatic moments and occasionally a little bit of bad blood,
It brings out the passion.
Yeah, it really does. And both teams have incredibly passionate fan bases, which just adds fuel to the fire.
Yeah.
It's really something to behold.
And then there's the Subway Series
Oh, yes.
with the New York Mets.
Of course.
The battle for bragging rights in New York City.
Yeah, it's a reminder that for all their national and international fame, the Yankees are still, a New York team at heart,
At their core.
at their core.
And they embody that spirit of the city itself.
Absolutely.
From those iconic pinstripes to the roar of the crowd, the Yankees are more than just a baseball team.
I agree.
They're a cultural institution.
They are a cultural institution.
But for all their triumphs and iconic players, there have also been some controversies and challenges along the way, right?
It's true.
I mean, that Evil Empire nickname, it's not just a joke.
No, I think it reflects, a perception of the team. Their big spending, has drawn criticism from some, accusing them of trying to, quote unquote, buy championships.
Sure.
And then, we can't forget those instances of some fan behavior, particularly with the bleacher creatures.
Yeah.
Their rowdiness has occasionally crossed the line.
It's unfortunate, but it's a reminder that even with a team as storied and successful as the Yankees, fandom can sometimes manifest in negative ways.
That's right.
And it's an ongoing conversation, right? How to support your team passionately without resorting to disrespectful or harmful behavior.
Absolutely.
And we'd also be remiss if we didn't mention the controversies surrounding some individual players.
Mm-hmm.
Roger Maris's home run record, for instance,
Yeah,
was questioned because he played in a longer season than Babe Ruth.
that's right.
And then there's the Alex Rodriguez saga and his use of performance-enhancing drugs.
It's unfortunate, but these incidents remind us that athletes, even the most talented and celebrated ones, are human. They make mistakes, they face temptations, and they don't always live up to, our expectations.
And it's important to remember that these incidents, while unfortunate, are also part of the Yankees story.
Yeah.
It adds another layer to our understanding of the team and their place in baseball history.
Absolutely.
Now, before we move on to part 2, let's leave our listeners with this question.
Okay.
How do you think those controversies and the pressure to maintain their winning legacy have shaped the Yankees' approach to player development in recent years?
It's a great question, and one that I think really gets to the heart of the challenges facing a franchise with such a rich and sometimes complicated history.
Yeah.
How do you balance tradition with the need to adapt and evolve in a constantly changing sport? We'll explore that further in the next part of our deep dive.
I'm looking forward to it.
Welcome back to our deep dive into the New York Yankees.
We've covered a lot of ground, haven't we? From those humble beginnings as the Baltimore Orioles
Yeah.
all the way to their reign as the Bronx Bombers.
Yeah.
It's just the Yankees have a history that's both fascinating and complex.
It is.
I'm really starting to appreciate the layers here.
And as we, continue to unpack the information you provided, we'll see how this complexity unfolds in different aspects of the team's identity.
Yeah.
We can look at their visual representation, how they've been portrayed in popular culture, and even the physical spaces they've called home.
You can't talk about the Yankees without mentioning those iconic pinstripes.
It's true. I mean,
Those pinstripes are more than just a uniform, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they've become a symbol of the team's history, tradition, and this, enduring legacy.
and according to the Wikipedia entry, they were first introduced in 1912. I mean, do you think they knew back then what a lasting impact those pinstripes would have?
It's hard to say, but it is fascinating how something, so simple as a pinstripe can become so deeply intertwined with a team's identity.
Yeah.
Initially, I think they were meant to, make players look slimmer.
Oh, but they quickly became synonymous with the Yankees and with baseball itself.
Speaking of things that have become synonymous with the Yankees,
Okay.
let's talk about their home stadium.
Okay. Yeah.
I know they've had a few over the years, right?
They have.
It must be kind of hard to move from such iconic locations.
It is. It is. Yeah. They started at Hilltop Park in Upper Manhattan
Okay.
and then moved to the Polo Grounds, which they shared with the New York Giants for a time.
I see.
And then in 1923, they opened the original Yankee Stadium,
Which
quickly became known as the house that Ruth built.
such a fitting nickname.
Yeah. And I mean, that stadium witnessed, some of the most iconic moments in baseball history.
Oh, for sure.
From Babe Ruth's, towering home runs to Lou Gehrig's emotional farewell speech. It was a place where legends were made.
It gives me chills just thinking about it.
And then, of course, in 2009, they opened the new Yankee Stadium just like a block away from the original site.
I've heard the new stadium incorporates a lot of design elements from the original one.
Oh, it does, yeah.
Was that a deliberate choice
I think so.
to maintain that sense of history and tradition?
Yeah. I think they wanted to pay homage to the past while also, embracing modern amenities and features.
Yeah.
It's a balancing act, and I think they've done a remarkable job of kind of, preserving the essence of Yankee Stadium, even as they move into a new era.
And speaking of preserving the essence,
Yeah.
let's talk about Yankee fans. We already mentioned the bleacher creatures,
Right.
but, they're really just the tip of the iceberg, aren't they?
Oh, you could say that. The Yankees have one of the most passionate and dedicated fan bases in all of sports.
Yeah.
Their fandom is often passed down through generations,
Yeah.
which is really cool. It creates this sense of community and shared history.
Yeah, there's a real sense of belonging, isn't there?
There is.
Being a part of something bigger than yourself. And this fandom extends, beyond New York City, right?
Oh, it does.
The Yankees are, a global brand
Yeah.
with fans all over the world.
I mean, that kind of loyalty is hard to build and even harder to maintain,
That's the power of a dynasty, I
Yeah, I
guess.
guess so.
It's not just about winning. It's about creating a legacy that transcends, generations
Mm-hmm.
and geographical boundaries.
Absolutely.
Pretty amazing. The Yankees are a cultural force to be reckoned with.
They are. And we see that cultural impact in movies and music, even in television,
Oh, yeah.
I mean, think about classic films like Pride of the Yankees all the way to, modern day TV shows like Seinfeld.
Right.
The Yankees have become this recurring theme in entertainment.
They even have their own theme song,
That's right.
New York, New York.
Which was originally made famous by Frank Sinatra.
Yeah, exactly.
It's pretty incredible how deeply embedded they are in American culture.
That song's a great example.
Yeah.
It's become, synonymous with the Yankees
Uh-huh.
and with New York City itself.
Yeah. I mean, it's played after every home game win, and, fans just absolutely love it.
Yeah, it's a tradition.
It is.
Seems like with the Yankees, we're not just talking about baseball.
Huh.
They're a cultural phenomenon that goes beyond the sport itself.
You hit the nail on the head.
It's really fascinating.
I mean, they represent this unique intersection of sports, history, and entertainment.
Yeah.
And, they've become woven into the fabric of American culture, and their story resonates with people, from all walks of life.
But for all their successes and cultural impact, the Yankees have also had their share of controversies, right?
Yeah, for sure.
That evil empire nickname, it's not just a joke.
No, I think it reflects, a perception of the team.
Yeah.
Their big spending has often drawn criticism, with some accusing them of trying to, buy championships.
Yeah.
And let's not forget about those instances of some fan behavior, particularly with the bleacher creatures.
Yeah.
Their rowdiness has occasionally crossed the line.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but it's a reminder that even with a team as storied and as successful as the Yankees, fandom can sometimes manifest in negative ways.
Absolutely.
It's an ongoing conversation about, how to support your team passionately without resorting to disrespectful or harmful behavior.
Right. Yeah. It's about finding that balance
Yeah.
between passion and respect.
And we'd be remiss if we didn't mention the controversies surrounding some individual players.
Right.
I mean, Roger Maris's home run record
Yeah.
was questioned because he played in a longer season than Babe Ruth.
Uh-huh.
And then there's the Alex Rodriguez saga and his use of performance-enhancing drugs.
These incidents, unfortunately, remind us that athletes, even the most talented and celebrated ones, are human.
Right.
They make mistakes, they face temptations, and they don't always live up to our expectations.
And it's important to remember that these incidents, while unfortunate, are also part of the Yankees' story. They add another layer to our understanding of the team and its place in baseball history.
I think that's an important point to make.
We've talked a lot about the players,
Uh-huh.
the fans, the stadiums,
Yeah.
even the controversies.
Right.
But what about the people behind the scenes?
Okay.
Like, who are the masterminds that have shaped this dynasty?
Now we're getting to the heart of the organization.
Yeah.
Their management and player development.
Okay.
It's what keeps the machine running year after year, striving for those World Series titles.
Right.
And it's fascinating to see how their approach has evolved over time.
The Wikipedia entry has a list of all the principal owners and general managers throughout the Yankees' history.
Oh, yeah.
And it's impressive.
It's quite a list.
I mean, we're talking about some of the biggest names in baseball.
There's a definite through line of strong leadership.
Yeah.
Figures like Ed Barrow, George Weiss, and of course, George Steinbrenner.
George Steinbrenner?
Yeah.
The boss.
They left their mark on the franchise.
He was a larger-than-life figure
He was...
who really shaped the Yankees' identity for decades.
Absolutely. He had, this fiery personality and a relentless pursuit of winning.
Yeah.
He wasn't afraid to, make bold moves, whether it was trading for star players or, hiring and firing managers.
He's definitely not afraid to shake things up.
No, he was not.
There's a quote from him in the Wikipedia entry. Winning is the most important thing in my life after breathing. Breathing first, winning next.
That sums him up perfectly.
It really does.
I mean, it's that kind of unwavering commitment to victory that has become synonymous with the Yankees organization.
After Steinbrenner's passing in 2010, his sons, Hal and Hank, took over ownership.
That's right.
I imagine it's been quite a challenge to fill those shoes.
I think they've faced the challenge of, carrying on their father's legacy while also adapting to, a changing baseball landscape.
Yeah.
I mean, the game has evolved with, new approaches to analytics and player development.
But they've managed to stay competitive.
They've
assembled some incredible teams, even reaching the World Series as recently as 2024.
Yeah, and a lot of credit for that success has to go to Brian Cashman, their current general manager.
Right.
He's been with the Yankees since 1998.
Wow.
Providing stability and expertise during a period of, significant change in the game.
Speaking of change, Cashman has had to navigate the rise of sabermetrics and the increasing emphasis on data analysis in baseball.
Yeah.
That must have been a huge shift for an organization that was, so steeped in tradition.
It was a new era of baseball management, but I think the core principles of the Yankees haven't changed.
Okay.
Identify talent, build a strong team, win championships.
Right.
They've adapted their strategies without, I think, compromising their commitment to excellence.
And they've also had to adapt to the financial realities of the modern game, haven't they?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
With the luxury tax and competitive balance rules, it's not as easy for them to just, outspend their rivals like they might have in the past.
So where does this leave the Yankees as we look to the future? What challenges do they face? as they tried to maintain their place atop, baseball's hierarchy?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And it's one that leads us into the final part of our deep dive.
Okay.
The Yankees are at a crossroads.
Okay.
They have this rich history, a passionate fan base, and an unwavering commitment to winning.
Right.
But the game is changing, and they're going to have to adapt if they want to continue their reign as baseball's most storied franchise.
Welcome back to the final stretch of our New York Yankees deep dive.
Yeah.
It's amazing how much ground we've covered, from those humble beginnings
Yeah.
as the Baltimore Orioles,
It's been quite a journey.
all the way to the modern era with, stars like Aaron Judge and Jarrett Cole.
It really has. It's fascinating to see how a sports team can become so deeply ingrained in the culture
Right.
of a city, a nation, even the world.
We've explored their origins, their dynasties, those iconic players and stadiums, and even their impact on pop culture. What's left to uncover?
Well, I think now we can really delve into the heart of what keeps the Yankees machine running, year after year.
Yeah.
Their management and player development.
Okay.
I mean, it's the engine that drives their relentless pursuit of those World Series titles.
And this Wikipedia entry actually provides a fascinating list
Oh, it does.
of their principal owners and general managers throughout their history.
Yeah.
And it really does read like a who's who of baseball executives.
It's quite a list, yeah.
We're talking about some of the biggest names in baseball.
What strikes me is the consistency of strong leadership. We see figures like Ed Barrow, George Weiss,
Right.
and of course, the legendary George Steinbrenner.
The boss.
Yeah. These individuals, I mean, they left an undeniable mark on the franchise.
Ah, yes, George Steinbrenner. You can't talk about the Yankees without mentioning his outsized personality.
Oh, absolutely. Impact.
He was a force to be reckoned with.
Oh.
I mean, how would you describe him? How did he shape the Yankees' identity?
I mean, he had this, fiery personality, this relentless pursuit of winning.
Oh, yeah.
He wasn't afraid to make really bold moves,
Right.
whether it was trading for star players
Yeah.
or, hiring and sometimes firing managers.
He kept everyone on their toes. The Wikipedia entry even has this great quote from him. "Winning is the most important thing in my life after breathing. Breathing first, winning next."
That is so George Steinbrenner.
I know. It perfectly captures that win-at-all-costs mentality
Uh-huh.
that's become so synonymous with the Yankees.
It really has.
So after Steinbrenner's passing in 2010, his sons, Hal and Hank, took over ownership.
Yeah, I mean, that must have been, a daunting task, right?
Yeah, big shoes to fill.
To step into a role like that, following in their father's footsteps.
What challenges did they face?
I think they faced the challenge of, carrying on their father's legacy while also, adapting to this changing baseball landscape. I mean, the game has evolved, with new approaches to analytics and player development.
Right.
It's not just about gut instincts and big spending anymore.
It's a whole new ball game. But, I mean, they've managed to stay pretty competitive, haven't they?
They have. I mean, they've assembled some, very talented teams.
Right.
And even reached the World Series as recently as, 2024.
So it seems like they found that balance between tradition and innovation.
They have. I mean, they've shown a willingness to evolve while also, honoring their past.
And we can't forget Brian Cashman, their current general manager.
Of course not. He's been a steady presence
Yeah.
in that organization.
He's been with the Yankees since 1998.
a long time.
That's a long time. I mean, talk about experience and expertise. He must have seen it all.
He's been through a lot of changes in the game.
Speaking of changes, I mean, Cashman has had to navigate this rise of sabermetrics, right?
Oh, yeah.
The increasing emphasis on data analysis in baseball. How did, an organization so rooted in tradition, how did they embrace these new methods?
That's what I find so interesting about the Yankees, right?
Yeah.
They've embraced these new tools
Mhm.
while still, adhering to their core principles, which
yes.
are, identifying talent,
Right.
building a strong team,
Right.
winning championships.
Right.
They've adapted their strategies, I think, without compromising their commitment to excellence.
And they've also had to adapt to the financial realities of the modern game.
Oh, we're sure. Yeah, with the
Yeah.
luxury tax and competitive balance rules.
Right.
It's not as easy for them to just, outspend their rivals like they might have in the past.
So where does this leave the Yankees as they, look ahead to the future?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It is.
I mean, the Yankees, they're at a crossroads.
Okay.
They have this incredible history,
Yeah.
this passionate fan base that, expects nothing less than championships. And this deep-seated commitment to winning.
Of course.
But they also face the challenge of, adapting to a rapidly changing game
Yeah.
and finding ways to stay ahead of the curve.
It sounds like their future's filled with possibilities, but also some tough decisions.
Absolutely. And I think that's what makes following the Yankees so compelling, right?
Yeah.
They're a team in constant evolution, but one thing remains constant: that relentless pursuit of excellence.
Well, there you have it. A deep dive into the history of the New York Yankees, a team that has truly transcended the sport of baseball.
We've explored their triumphs and their heartbreaks, their iconic players and their shrewd management, and how they've navigated, both tradition and innovation to remain one of the most recognizable and successful franchises in the world.
And as we close out this deep dive, we'll leave you with this.
Okay.
How do you think the Yankees will approach the next chapter in their history? Will they maintain that win-now mentality?
Right.
Or will they embrace a more patient approach, focused on building a sustainable dynasty for the future? It's a question worth pondering, I think, for any Yankees fan.
And for any baseball fan, really, who
Yeah.
appreciates, the enduring legacy and the ever-evolving story of this iconic team.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive, and we'll see you next time.
Until then.